Good morning, Brandon staff and students, and thank you for tuning into BTV. Today is Thursday, November 7th, 2019. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, followed by a moment of quiet reflection.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Today is day 1A of the special rotation.
Now for today's weather. Autumn is finally here. Right now it is a low of 44 degrees with a high of 66 degrees with the forecast of scattered showers. Hopefully it won't be raining when it's time for recess.
Our lunch menu today is chicken fajita burrito, fish nuggets with roll, fresh veggie sub, and Mexicorn. Our IB Learner Profile attribute of the month for November is caring.
What does it mean to be caring?
Caring students show empathy, compassion, and respect toward the needs and feelings of others. Caring people also want to make a positive difference in the world.
What does it look like to be caring?
Be sensitive toward the feelings of others. Think about how your actions might affect others. Help others without being asked, and be friendly to everyone in action and words.
Well, good morning, everybody. I wanted to just come on real quick and give a shout out for some action that was done here in the school this past week. Oftentimes, we see this symbol around the building of IB, and we wonder what does that really mean? That Morris Brandon's an IB school, or I'm an IB student. So what it really means is an IB student is one who uses the attributes that we cover over here in your classroom, that we cover here on BTV in the morning, of just being principled and open-minded and caring and communicative and reflective and all those other words that you see up there, inquirer and such. And using those skills are going to make you successful no matter where you go, because they transcend any boundary. But equally important to being able to do all that is, and exhibit those traits, is also being able to take some sort of action. Whether it's action about something you've learned in the room, or just some sort of outside action that shows that you're being a caring, compassionate, empathetic, inquiring person outside of school to impact the community. So one example that was given to me by Miss Herron, 5th grade teacher, is Grant Bernstein Wilner. And a few weeks ago, Grant spearheaded a yard sale to raise money for an organization called Nothing But Nets, which provides mosquito nets for those in need in Africa to prevent the spread of malaria, which is a terrible disease, especially while people are sleeping, because they can't control mosquitoes if you're asleep. So these nets are meant to really help protect them during sleeping. This took weeks of planning on his part, and organizing and time and donations, and he was able to sell in his yard sale some personal belongings and raise about $180 for the cause. And then this organization wrote him a note back, and I quote, "Dear Grant, thanks to donors like you, we've raised over $70 million to deliver over 13 million bed nets to families in need, along with other crucial malaria interventions like testing, treatment, and training of healthcare workers." And behind us you can see pictures of Grant advertising his yard sale signs. So awesome job, Grant, and whenever any of you have taken any kind of action you want it to be showcased here, let your teacher know, let me know, and we will find a way to get that on here for you and make some time for you to get us some information and even get you on here and talk about it yourself. But thank you, Grant, and thank you all, and have a great rest of your day.
On Tuesday, we recognized our 2019 to 2020 Math Olympiad team. We apologize that a few names were left off the list, and we want to acknowledge those students now.
Annabelle Sheffer,
Tobias Short,
Maddox Smith-Davis,
and Molly Spector.
Great job for your accomplishment.
And now for today's joke of the day. What kind of key has legs but can't open doors?
I don't know. I've never heard of one.
A turkey.
This concludes today's episode of BTV. Stay tuned for a video from Mr. Hudson and Mr. Bland about this month's SEL Book of the Month, Those Shoes. I'm Ethan.
I'm Catherine.
I'm Bridget. I'm Lexi.
Thank you for watching. Have a thrilling Thursday. Bye!
And welcome back to our next month's Principal Book Chat. This is another phenomenal book chosen by our Atlanta Public Schools SEL department. This month we're reading Those Shoes by Mary Beth Belts and Noah Jones. And this is another great story that teaches us a lot about self-awareness and empathy. And I love how the story really took a change in the middle, Mr. Hudson. And it was about Jeremy, who wanted those new shoes that everybody had, but he just did not have the means to get them. What were your thoughts about the story?
I can empathize with him because as a child growing up, there were certain styles and fashions, and going back to my days, back in the 80s, I think one of the hot shoes were the shell tops Adidas, and I never got a pair. That was because my parents said, hey, listen, we have more important things to deal with than buying $80 shoes back then. So the answer was no. I felt the way that the student felt in the story because guess what? Just like he couldn't get those brand new shoes, I couldn't get them growing up either.
Yeah, and we know that, shoes don't make the person. The clothes don't make the person. It's really what's inside that matters. And getting back to a point that you made, the grandmother said, we don't have any room for want. We just have room for need. What does that mean?
They have to focus on the things that are more important. And yeah, you can get a pair of sneakers that cost $80, but then in turn you could also get a pair of sneakers, a pair of boots, a pair of dress shoes, and things that you need for that same amount of money. So why spend all that money just to get one pair of shoes?
Yeah. And then I loved the grandmother and how caring she was because she tried to do everything she could to get Jeremy those new shoes. And they ended up going to the thrift store, and Jeremy bought a pair of shoes, and it was cheap. But what happened to those shoes?
They were too small.
They were too small, right?
Yeah.
So, I guess what we learned after that is Antonio enters the picture, and we learned that Antonio was the only person that didn't laugh at Jeremy when he came in with his old shoes, right? Mm-hmm. What ended up happening after that?
So after that, Jeremy, seeing that Antonio needed new shoes because he saw what was going on with the shoes and that they were ripped and tattered, he said, you know what? I have these shoes, they're too small for me. Why don't I give them to my friend Jeremy?
Yeah, and I think what was really special was when Jeremy took a look at the shoes that were given to him by his really sweet counselor, kind of like our counselor who does the same things, he hated the shoes that he had on, right? But when he saw his shoes, the ones that he wanted, that didn't fit him, on his friend Antonio, what happened?
So that's where we really go into the self-awareness piece. And that's just knowing who you are, how you feel about your own emotions, and you're able to name and describe them. And I'll read what he says. I feel happy when I look at his face and mad when I look at Mr. Alfrey's shoes. So he was happy to see the joy that his friend had because he gave him those nice pair of shoes. But then when he looked down at his old Velcro shoes, it made him upset.
Mm-hmm. That's true. But, happiness prevailed, and I loved that Jeremy was so kind, and he went to his door, and even anonymously rang the doorbell, left him on there, and ran away, right? Because he knew he wasn't going to get the shoes. He knew they weren't going to fit him. He knew his feet were only going to be hurt, but he wanted to give them to somebody who really could use them, and I think that's ultimately what made him really happy.
And that's what happiness and joy should be. It should be about what we do for others and not about the possessions that we have. Because some people get caught up in possessions. Oh, I have shoes, I have clothes, I have all these things. But that's not true happiness. True happiness is being able to share and help one another and see the good things that you can do for someone else.
You're right, and it's really what's on the inside that counts, right?
That's it.
So as we wrap up this month's book talk, we are in our new kindergarten IB play space, which is where I see all sorts of empathy and self-awareness and kindness taking place every day as our kindergartners learn through play. So we wanted to highlight that room today and thank all of our teachers who made that possible. And I actually cannot wait until December when we get to our last Principal Book Talk of the year.
I can't wait.
All right, I'll see you there.
Have a good one.